all-time leader, at minimum active leader in trade requests, one James Harden, which this is rich in a number of ways. So he's pissed off because he took a quote-unquote discount last year and thought they were going to hook him up on the back end this year. Daryl Morey wisely is like, I'm not about to just back up the Brinks truck for you, but who's going to give Philadelphia a sweetheart deal for a guy who's a rental? Because the team that gets him can't extend him. Who's gonna bend over backwards to accommodate a good trade for Philly for a player that's a rental, to say nothing of the fact that he's not gonna show up when you need him in the playoffs? Secondly, if you're Daryl Morey, your brand is these players are just assets. Ask Ben Simmons. I will sit here and wait for the best deal before I just take a bad deal. Michael, you know I think in themes. And the theme for the A block today is relationships. And we know that Daryl Morey and James Harden have had a long-standing relationship, which now that they're in this holding pattern since his trade request, has deteriorated to the point of James Harden saying this morning over in China.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of again. Thank you, man. Any more questions? You good?
Couple of things about that. I like the TED Talk posture, and I like the let me say that again, okay? Just in case you missed it the first time. So, a couple of things, man. There's so much to unpack about this.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot to unpack. You're right.
A lie is only as effective as you allow it to be. A lie is only effective if you believe it. And as my lawyer told me, a verbal agreement ain't worth the paper it's printed on. Let me say that again. A verbal agreement ain't worth the paper it's printed on. So James Harden, you're the fool if you in fact took less money last year with a wink, nod, handshake agreement that Daryl Morey was gonna make it up to you on the back end, okay? You're the fool for believing that. Because Daryl Morey has already shown you who he is, shown you who he is to other people, to other players. So why didn't you believe him when he showed you who he was? Oh, I know why, because you thought you were special. Michael, I can speak from experience, okay? I don't care how much like family these executives make you feel. At the end of the day, it ain't personal, it's business. And James Harden, I just had an experience like that the other day, okay? James Harden should have better known better, okay? He like Antoine Rockamora should have better known better than to think that you taking less to help the Sixers out, that a year later, that Daryl Morey was gonna make it up to you in the form of a long-term max deal, which he allegedly wants. So that's where I'm at with James Harden, man. Ain't nobody got no sympathy for James Harden. To say nothing of the fact that, okay, you making this ultimatum, Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of again. Who are you hurting exactly? Like, okay, so we know if we get James Harden, we'll get the league leader in assists per game in the regular season, but when it comes time to show up in the playoffs, we can't count on him. So you'll never be a part of our organization. Boo effing who? Last but not least, you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at the Clippers, the team you say you want to go to. Clearly they ain't stepped up to the plate because you've already compromised leverage by saying that's the team you want to play for. So James Harden could have avoided all of this if he would not have opted into his contract last year. Or excuse me, this offseason. This $35 million contract that he's making this year. Just be a free agent. Opt out. You had a player option. You chose to opt in thinking you were going to get traded to the place you wanted to go. You thought it was going to be one way, but it's the other way. And I'll shut up with that, Michael, because you know what?
Hey, no.
I know you've been laughing all morning.
You know what, man?
Because you've been telling me about James Harden for how many years? So that's all I gotta say.
But it ain't. But Mike, it's really not about like, hey, I told you so with James Harden.
But you did.
Let me just go behind the curtain. I know I did. I'm gonna go behind the curtain a little bit for our loyal audience, our BFA people, and a lot of them are here on Martha's Vineyard. I told you about them. You were here, and I've run into a lot of just loyal fans who really appreciate the show. Have been following the show since day one. So thank you to those folks. But generally, Mike, I can tell where we were in the show based on the background. Like sometimes we will run, and in case you missed it, and it's got those plain backgrounds, I said, oh, that's before we got our graphics package in. Or I can see, depending on the haircut that you have, or depending on what the background is, what I'm wearing, I can tell what year it is. With James Harden, dog, I have lost track. It's all a blur with James Harden. When you ran, we just saw that with Sam Amick. I don't know when that was. I was here in the vineyard, I guess. Like, there's so many declarations and statements with Harden. I'm never gonna do this. I want out of here. We've had Houston Harden. We've had Brooklyn Harden. We've had Philly Harden. Maybe back to Houston Harden, but they didn't want him. Maybe to the Clippers Harden, but as you pointed out, they weren't ready to step up for him. So, bro, like, what? I just don't understand what he's searching. It's an OKC thing. It really goes back to OKC. If you go back when we do the documentary on Sam Presti in Oklahoma City, and we look at Russell, and we look at Harden, and we look at Durant, it's gonna be like, it ain't just a basketball story. It's like a searching for meaning, spiritual journey thing. Like, what are these dudes ultimately searching for? And the last thing I'll say for Harden and Phil,
in this case, is money.
But it ain't money. He got plenty of money. It ain't just money. It wasn't money in Houston.
Money.
He wanted out.
Money.
But he
no.
Okay, but
I'm saying now. I'm saying in this instance, apparently, or maybe it's the principle of the matter. I don't know. But again, from what I understand, Daryl Morey said, take this discount so we can fill out this roster. We'll take care of you on the back end. Like, you're a fool for believing that. And if you're Daryl Morey, you'd be a fool for giving him the contract he wants. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But and listen, I love going in on Harden, but there is a Daryl Morey aspect to this. I'm not sure what it is yet. It will reveal itself. It'll come out. But
he probably did lie to him. He probably did lie to him. I mean, but that's what they all do. That's what I'm saying. It's like, that's your fault for believing his lie.
But you're right. Executives, it ain't personal. It ain't personal. It's business. This is what they do. This is an introduction to corporate America. But if you think about it, that slot is cursed in Philadelphia. Ben Simmons said the same thing. Daryl, I don't want to do that. So Ben Simmons said these things. Everybody was happy to get Ben Simmons out of there and get James Harden in. They're going to be happy to get Harden out, probably get somebody else in. It's twofold. I'd say 85% of the problem is Harden, or maybe 75% is Harden, 25% is Daryl Morey. The way he is doing business is not good business. And he doesn't get a pass because he ain't done nothing to earn it. So I'm not going to give him a pass either. I'll put it all on Harden. I'll put most of it on Harden, but Daryl Morey, he's got some...
But Daryl Morey ain't in China. He'll never be in China. But Daryl Morey ain't. We didn't wake up this morning to Daryl Morey saying James Harden is a fraud. James Harden is a regular season player when he feels like playing. James Harden in the playoffs will never show up when you need him. James Harden is about to run Joel Embiid out of town, and I don't want him to be a part of this organization. That's not what Daryl Morey got on camera and said this morning. That's not what we woke up to. We woke up to James Harden deciding the public to call the general manager a liar, and he might be telling the truth about him being a liar. But again, what is your role in accepting and believing his lies? Again, Daryl Morey, James Harden hung the moon and the stars for Daryl Morey for years. From OKC, when he got him out of OKC to Houston all the way through. James Harden is a depreciating asset and a declining player, an aging player. So now, here's Daryl Morey looking out for Daryl Morey. which is what they all do. Let's pivot real quick. Let's get to a couple of more relationships. I think I was ahead of the game, or ahead of my time, when it came to what we know it to be college football in 2023. Because I think it has something to do with me going to Loyola, New Orleans. With the time that I grew up in New Orleans, we didn't have the relationship with LSU that we did. I grew up rooting for Florida State, so I did love college football. But I didn't grow up in a college football hotbed the way you did in Ohio, rooting for OHIO, right? But I know you have a special relationship with college football. My relationship with college football has always been, at least as an adult, through the prism of the NFL draft. More than it's been about the rivalries, the pageantry, conference supremacy, bragging rights, this, that, and the third. So I think, honestly, I was ahead of the game on that. Because what the hell is college football now? And I would love to know what your relationship is with it now, given that it's not the Big Ten, but the Big Team at this point. Given that, like, I'm old enough to remember the Pac-8, now it's the Pac-4. You know, whatever's left of it is the Pac-4. I mean, I can't even keep up with who plays where. There is no, obviously, geography is out the window, and it's not over. We might have Pacific Coast teams, West Coast teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I mean, the SEC may not be done. The aforementioned Florida State may leave the ACC. It's bananas, and it's sad. It's sad. And the thing that saddens me, the thing that incenses me, is that time and time again, we've known for years, Michael, we've written about it, we've preached about it, we've talked about it. So we blew in the face the hypocrisy of college sports, basketball and football primarily, for years. They come in with this name, image, and likeness stuff, and somewhat freedom with the transfer portal, okay? But that still ain't enough. That's crumbs. Because time and time again, these schools are looking out for themselves, and no matter how much the players can make by doing extra work, that's basically what name, image, and likeness is. You know, you got to do extra stuff to get it. Like, no matter, it's still not enough. It's still a drop in the bucket compared to the money that's being made at their expense and at the expense of what used to be appealing about the game. Now it's just the NFL's minor leagues, which it always was, but they're just more blatant with it now. It's way more on the open now. They're not even trying to pretend that this is amateur, that this is not big business. These are not employees. Because I'll be damned how you gonna call somebody who gotta hop a plane to play a conference game? How is that not an employee? That looked like our job.
Yeah. Well, you know what, bro? I mean, but I think, I like the way you said it. I think you said it beautifully off the top, that you had a different relationship with college football because of where you went to school, and then the relationship between, you know, Loyola, or the lack of relationship between Loyola of New Orleans and LSU in New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and there's a difference there, the gap there. Well, I've had a different relationship with college football too, but my relationship with college football is more of seeing it for what it is, what it always has been. Look, I knew this years ago. A brother from Cleveland named Robert Smith played in the NFL. You probably played him on Madden or Tecmo Bowl. Robert Smith for the Minnesota Vikings, great running back. But he left Ohio State early. Why did he leave Ohio State? Because they were in conflict. He wanted to go to medical school. He wanted to study. He was studying pre-med. And Ohio State said to him, "What are you doing? We don't want you to go to your labs and miss practice." It has always been that at big-time institutions. And we knew it, but we didn't speak about it out loud. We didn't talk about it at parties, right? But now we do. And I've always known it. Ohio State and Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, USC, it's not about academics. It's not about student athletes. It's not about having these kids get the greatest.
It ain't about other sports besides football at this point.
Money.
It ain't about other sports even. It ain't about the athletic departments. It's about football at this point.
It's about football. It's about millions of dollars. It's about millions. And so I guess
billions.
I'd love to sit here and tell you, oh, it's a damn shame. And you know, I'm saddened by this. To be saddened by it, I'd have to be surprised by it. To be saddened by it, I'd have to say I never saw this coming. I didn't see it coming.
Well, I don't know if we saw this coming, this extent. I mean, this is out of control. I didn't see this
coming.
Yeah, the Pac-12.
Okay, I didn't see this coming. I'm telling you, yeah, it's crazy. I didn't see a conference dissolving. I never saw UCLA and USC going to the Big Ten. Look, man,
right.
I'm still having a hard time with Penn State,
Texas and Oklahoma
in the Big Ten. Penn State's been there almost 30 years.
And I was gonna say Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC doesn't seem as weird now. Like if we're gonna talk about Stanford and Cal, and speculating about they may end up in the ACC, which I know that's on pause if not dead. It's like, okay, I guess geography just doesn't matter at this point.
But why don't we just real quick? I'll say this: why don't we? It's all be adults, because adults are making these decisions. And so-called academics and scholars and provosts are signing off on it, and presidents and vice presidents, all these academic people with like 100, PhDs, MDs, all this stuff, BAs and MFAs, all this stuff behind their names. These are academics. Why don't we all be grown-ups and just sanction it all? Say, it's Ohio State University, and this is our squad representing the university. We ain't pretending that they really student athletes. They just represent Ohio State, and it's good for them. They're getting exposure. It's good for us. We get money. And call it a dad. Stop the charade. It's not college sports. It's a professional. It's pretty much a professional operation. I'm not mad at it.
Absolutely professional.
I'm not mad at NIL. I'm not mad at any of this stuff.
The only people I'm mad at is people who are part of the system who bitch and complain about NIL and the transfer window. The transfer window ain't wide enough. There's not enough NIL money. That's like reparations. College football can't afford to pay players exactly what they deserve and what they owe. Over the decades and decades of exploitation. Like, it's like NIL, it's nothing. And yet you still got people complaining about what NIL and the transfer window have done to college football or college sports. When it's like, what do you mean what they've done to college sports? Like, the institutions, the NCAA, the universities, the conferences, the media rights deals, they spawned NIL and transfer windows. It ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. Not that the rabbit even has the gun, but it's always okay when everybody else makes more money. But like that's the only part that still makes me mad. That even now, the era of NIL is in full effect, and yet we still got people that complain about it. Got the nerve to complain about it.
Yeah, there's nothing to complain about. This is a wide open system. And then you think about the criticism of NIL too. What they're saying, it needs to be policed. It's you make up your own rules. It's unstructured. Well, isn't that exactly what's happening right now?
Right.
A couple weeks ago, maybe Stanford saw it coming, maybe Cal saw it coming, but a couple weeks ago we had Stanford and Cal, and they had the Pac-12, and everything's good now. They're scrambling, and the ACC is saying, we don't want them. A couple weeks, we didn't think that Washington and Oregon are going to the Big Ten now? I mean, UCLA and USC, I'm still trying to deal with that, but now,
it's every team for themselves. Every team for themselves. Everybody for themselves.
Amen.
In the immortal words of Boney T, first the fat boys break up, now this. There's nothing to believe in anymore. I mean, like, if you just set aside the white savior complex that was perpetuated by Sandra Bullock's The Blind Side to begin with, set that aside, it was a decent little movie, And Michael Oher was more than a decent tackle, as Reeta Hubbard, AKA the NFL chick, knows it is time with the Ravens in particular. But now come to find out, it was all a hoax. They made it sign some Britney Spears, conservatorship? What you call it?
Conservatorship.
Yeah. What'd you call it, Michael?
It's a conservatorship.
Conservatorship. All right. I sound like old boy of Hard Knocks, charcuterie board. Trying to say charcuterie board.
That's the right way to say it, as far as I'm concerned. By the way.
Hey, I wasn't mad at it. What was I saying? Oh yeah. And then he didn't make any money, no royalty, off the film. I mean, it's just. But he claims to have just learned about this, and their relationship deteriorated. So. We're talking about relationships in this show today, Reeta, what you know all about. Given your relationship with the Ravens, what'd you think of this story when you heard it?
This is crazy, but I'm not surprised. I don't know if that makes sense. It's crazy, but I'm not surprised, right? I mean, from my understanding or what I remember, Michael Oher was never really on board with how they portrayed him in the movie to begin with when it first came out. I remember. Yeah, he didn't like the whole unintelligent thing. And remember in the movie, they had the little boy teaching him how to play football using cans on the table. Well, he was playing football allegedly when they met him already. So that was all, you can already tell that was a Hollywood spin that they put on it, which I can completely understand in terms of him feeling some type of way about being portrayed as unintelligent and not knowing how to play football. But then you hear these stories now coming out about, the conservatorship and the movie rights, which allegedly they were two different documents, but allegedly the same lawyer was used for both the conservatorship as well as the movie rights, being him signing away from his movie rights. So basically, Michael Oher has been played. And it's really sad and unfortunate that these people have used him to come up and portray these guys as being, the white saviors that you mentioned already, Mike, and then really to be some scumbags. They just a bunch of scumbags. They owe that man a lot of money because they used his name, they used his likeness, and I don't know how you can sleep at night doing this and not giving that young man a dime. They owe him a lot of money.
He's not even a member of the family, Michael. He wasn't even adopted. Turn the file out. He was not adopted.
Nope.
That's the thing. That's the thing that gets me more than anything, because they really wounded him financially and emotionally. Because the conservatorship, really what it is, and a lot of times it is used, and a lot of people know about it from Britney Spears, but really it's in a lot of cases it's used to help somebody who can't help themselves. Whether that person is a minor or whether that person is an elder who has kind of lost, lost the ability to function on a day-to-day. It's not like they're totally, incapable of making decisions, but for big decisions and to protect them from being taken advantage of. That's the whole purpose of it, to protect those who can't protect themselves. And they flip this around. I think it's just so heartbreaking. Yeah, I know. Reeta and Mike, it's heartbreaking that Michael Oher recently found out that he was not a part of the family. Yeah. He always thought they adopted him. And to find out, not only did they not adopt him, but everybody else in the family is getting paid. They're all getting paid on just base level. Story. Okay, just the base level compensation, $225,000 a piece for everybody in the family except for him. They can lawyer us. They can talk about, well, you guys don't understand the nuance and and the complexity of the entire situation. Explain that to me. Why did everybody else get $225,000, 2.5% of the royalties, of the net proceeds, and my brother ain't get nothing?
Not a dime. And there's no way that you can sit here and make excuses. I don't care about you saying, well, we did this the legal way and all of these things. Where's the morality factor into all of this? And that's the part that I have a real problem with. You allegedly were there to take care of this young man, and really you did nothing for him. As far as I'm concerned, you acted like you were adopting him. You didn't do that. You acted like you were in his best interest. You didn't do that. So what exactly were you there for? And I don't care what excuses that you have. I don't give a damn about anything that you have to say about that. What you did was wrong, out of line. And the fact that he just found this out allegedly 6 months ago in February, he didn't even know how this went so long without him not knowing. I'm confused about that, but hey, the truth will set you free. Now he knows, and I hope that they get a whole bunch of backlash about this. I don't think this will happen. They probably won't do the right thing because they don't sound like good people, but I hope they do the right thing and give this man the money that he deserves, because you used him to make a whole book and movie about him, and he didn't get to see a dime for it.
The saviors turned out to be out in it to screw him. It's. I mean, I was blown away when I saw that. Yeah,
Can I throw this
go ahead.
out here?
We're gonna move on.
And I'm wondering here how we feel about it. This is a guy that I've interviewed before. I have a lot of respect for him. So we're talking about the movie. We keep talking about the movie, and I know the movie was brought up in the lawsuit.
The book,
but the movie was based off of Michael Lewis's best-selling book. And Michael Lewis is a terrific writer. I have a lot of respect for his writing ability and his reporting. Is there any? Should we be talking about him too?
Responsibility there?
Should we be talking about?
Yeah, sure. Anybody that perpetuated this story, yes.
That's right. That's right.
Perpetuated. He brought the story. We didn't know about. Hollywood didn't know about the story until Michael Lewis wrote about it. He wrote about it. So Michael Lewis, he got a best-selling book. He got paid. Michael Lewis got paid.
Right.
Filmmakers got paid.
I said perpetuated their story, I should say. Perpetuated the family story, which was the lie that they adopted him. All right, let's get some positive Ravens news. All right, Reeta, since you're here. J.K. Dobbins off PUP. That relationship seems strained as he's looking for a contract. But as the Ravens and Commanders set to engage in joint practices this week, I want to talk to you because I saw Lamar Jackson the other day rave about the relationship between him and Todd Monken. And I know at one point you were on and we were talking about OC when Greg Roman was gone, OC for Lamar Jackson. We talked about whether it was maybe Bieniemy at one point, Leftwich when he got let go, ended up being getting Todd Monken from Georgia. But we're a long way away from Lamar Jackson asking to be traded and that relationship looking like it was ruined between him and the Ravens, to now he seems to really be in a great place in terms of his ownership of this offense, the weapons they've given him, the freedom he now has to direct the offense. I'm wondering what you expect to see out of him this year, not that the contract situation is in his rear view. When it comes to his development and advancement as a passer, and really even just this week against in joint practices with a pretty good Commanders defense. And I want to talk about the Commanders as well with you. But
yeah, I mean, I definitely think that this will be a great practice for him because the front four for the Commanders are really good with Montez Sweat and Chase Young. So this will be a good test. Now, that offensive line for the Ravens is pretty good, but they're still trying to solidify the left guard situation. So it could get a little tricky with what they have on the other side from the Commanders. But this will be a great test for Lamar and that offense. I do think that Lamar is definitely getting the keys to the car, not only from the Todd Monken perspective, because of course, now he has an offensive coordinator that will allow him to use his passing skills, but also from a political perspective, right? I mean, I think that we can all agree that when a guy gets paid a lot of money, they're not going to be like, we just want you to run the ball. We're going to be a running offense. No, there's going to at least be some balance there at minimum, right? So I think now that you have that, you definitely have better pass catchers. What I saw from Zay Flowers in the first preseason game, it doesn't sound like much on paper, but the guy, they couldn't stop him. He had a pass interference drawn for him, and he also had a holding drawn from the defender, and he's a good blocker. So it's really fun to see that. We know what Odell can do when he's healthy. I'm just interested to see how this offensive line can hold up against the Commanders' front four and how these wide receivers are going to look down the field. So that should be fun. The running game is going to be what it's going to be. They're always going to be good. They do very, very well in that regard. But the passing game should be a fun matchup to see how they fare well, particularly in the line of scrimmage.
Michael, at the Combine, I got to interview Zay Flowers. Fell in love with that kid. I can see why the Ravens love him. You know how I feel about that organization anyway. Zay Flowers was right in your backyard, bro. He wasn't no secret to you the way he was balling out for BC. Joystick.
But look,
that's what they call him.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. He's great. He's going to be great for the Ravens because he had to overcome a lot. And I'm not even talking about his personal story. I'm just talking about on the field, playing at Boston College, where it is not a great situation. They've never had a first-round wide receiver ever in their history. He was the first wide receiver drafted in the first round from Boston College. They had quarterback issues last year. They had offensive issues, and he still balled out when defenses knew that they didn't have much else to worry about outside of him. So he is going to be a great receiver for the Ravens. I really believe that. And it's a shame, the Patriots, who can't draft a wide receiver. If you took the Patriots Pro Football Hall of Fame and said, these are Hall of Fame receivers and here are their traits, they still wouldn't be able to draft a wide receiver. But still, the dude was right up the road at Boston College, and they didn't take him. So I think they'll.
Hey, listen. As somebody who is very knowingly knowledgeable of the Ravens organization, I am very used to this because remember, Stephon Diggs was right down the street at Maryland, so we've seen them pass on guys all the time. Now they just understand that they can't do that anymore. And in order to win in the NFL, they got to get some wide receivers. So I think that's how Zay Flowers fell into their lap in this regard.
So let's, before we let you go, I probably should have led with this because this is a deeper conversation that we got time for. Michael knows this. I love Sam Howell since he was at North Carolina. I can't wait to see what he does this year. Like what I saw from him this past weekend in limited preseason action. But the Commanders angle that I like to talk about with the two of you guys, because we've been gone for a minute, so we got to rewind for a second. Michael, I know you peeped this. This whole Ron Rivera volunteering that Eric Bieniemy, some of the players are their feelings and Kush and Avery and just upset because it's a little too intense and harsh. It's like, what have y'all done? What have any of you done in D.C. to complain about somebody coming from Kansas City, where they reinventing offense in Kansas City and try to tell you how to do it better, Reeta? This Eric Bieniemy stuff just knows no bounds. And I feel like if it weren't Eric Bieniemy, if he hadn't been discredited by so many people, whether it's the process or people like LaShawn McCoy, I don't think players would feel emboldened enough to bitch and complain about, God forbid, somebody coaching them hard. I thought it was professional football.
I tweeted when this came out, I said, I don't know which one is worse, the fact that the guys are complaining or the fact that Ron Rivera actually told the media that this whole thing went down, or the fact that the players didn't feel comfortable enough to tell Eric Bieniemy himself and went to Ron Rivera. Because first and foremost, y'all are grown men. And I thought that you could be able to go to another grown man. So I'm confused as to how that was able to happen. Also, I'm trying to understand how you are not taking in what you get from Eric Bieniemy, who has won 2 Super Bowls in Kansas City. That is beyond me. Thirdly, Ron Rivera, from a media perspective, thank you for the information because it gives us something to talk about, but you really should not be telling us in-house business, and you know better. So then you try to clear it up. Then you try to clear it up the next day, and it made it worse than it did the first day. So I don't understand why you've already been a losing franchise. Then you turned around and said, oh, my players are complaining about this guy who came from a winning franchise, and he wants to do things this way.
What does it
say about you? This is a mess. All of this is a mess. All of this is a mess. I hope that these new owners find a way to shift all this BS out of here and clean the slate, because this is ridiculous.
Reeta, you're so smart. You're so smart. You're so good. Because you said a couple. You know what? I'm putting some more money in the plate here because you had a couple good preaching points I'm going to agree with. I'm going to put a little more in the offering. So, look, you said he knows better. Ron Rivera knows better. And you're right. He does know better, which leads me to think he did it on purpose.
Oh.
Because he's insecure. He's insecure about Eric Bieniemy coming in, who's head coaching material. He's head coaching material.
But wasn't that partly his call?
Well, we don't know. We don't know whose call it was.
It felt like he knew he had to get somebody with credibility on that side of the ball. Because his job is on the line, to your point, though, Michael.
Yep.
especially with new owners.
I was going to say, and even if it had been his call, even if it was his call months ago, he comes in, he sees a guy with with like a championship aura around him.
He's seeing how it's done.
Once you win a championship, it's all in all sports. Once you win a championship and you go into a situation that is not ready, Michael, you know what we're talking about, corporate America. You know what I'm talking about. Once you've been somewhere and then you go to an operation that is substandard, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is not how we do this here.
This how it's supposed to look.
Wait a minute. Why is he coming in? Why is he coming in later? Well, I told him to run 10 and out. Why is he going 12? Why did he break it short? All this stuff. He is a detail-oriented, tough coach.
The nerve to be paying attention to detail.
Right.
He knows better. So he said it, not in a moment of weakness. I think he said it because maybe he's a little annoyed by it, or maybe he's insecure and he doesn't like the way
I like that thought process. I like that.
Might be, but how's that lack of intensity? How's that worked out for him? How far has that gotten him? Reeta, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
All right, guys. See you soon.
All right, Reeta.
5 NFL coaches and 7 front office executives helped our man Mike Jones from The Athletic assemble a top 25, under 25 list. Now, granted, you have to be 25 or younger before week 1, and rookies are also ineligible. So there's a look at the list. You notice the New York Jets got 2 of the top 10, Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner. How the hell Jalen Hurts is number 8 and the second quarterback is beyond me, Michael. Okay. And, just in terms of the rest of the list, I think Devontae Smith is criminally underrated at number 18. And running backs, of course, get no love. Josh Jacobs, who's still just 25, is 17. And Jonathan Taylor is 23. He's 24. Running backs get no love, but that's no news to you, Michael. We love it when Connor Rogers is here. Connor, what's good? Great shirt. Love it. Garrett Wilson, the only young Jet that's not on that list. But let's stay with the Jets, though, man, because loved the first episode of Hard Knocks. Found myself, just enjoying the characters' company, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It was like, I like this team. I can get behind this team. How are you feeling, not just how the Jets look on paper, not just what you know about the Jets from the people you talk to, but watching them from an access perspective with HBO's Hard Knocks? Like, how are you feeling about the Jets' ability to meet, if not potentially exceed, some of the hype?
Well, it's great to see you guys, and always good when we jump right back into the darlings in New York right now. Listen, the baseball's not pretty. The Jets are on Hard Knocks, and you're right. There is such a fine line here because this was a team that did not make the playoffs last year. They've really struggled. They have the longest playoff drought in all of the professional sports right now, tied with the Sabres of the main 4 sports. So it's weird that we're now accelerating the conversation, but that's what happens when Aaron Rodgers is in town, and it feels like there is a window. People get obsessed with that term, but it's true. When a guy is approaching 40 years old at the quarterback position, he came to the Jets to win. He basically, I'm sure the destinations for Rodgers weren't going to be this long list, but we saw him come out and explicitly say, listen, I want to play for the New York Jets. That's my intention. So I think there's a lot to unpack here. Number one, they have a very deep pass rush group, and it comes out in waves. They've had a lot of first-round picks in that group. We saw Quentin Williams, one of them right there. They have Carl Lawson on a big free agent deal, but they've also drafted a lot of talent over the years that they think they need those guys to compete in the AFC against the Lamar Jacksons, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrows of the world. I mean, the amount of star quarterbacks in the AFC is really where it starts for the Jets. So do I think this is a Super Bowl team? I think that's become a little bit exaggerated. They have a lot to prove. They need an offensive line to stay healthy and gel. They need Rodgers to, it's crazy to say bounce back, but it wasn't his best year last year. They need a lot of young players to continue growing, and I think they will. But do I think they're going to be a really tough out and one of the most competitive teams in the AFC with what they have now at the quarterback position, paired with that young defense and playmakers? Absolutely.
Michael, I'm seeing iron sharpening iron in New York. How you feeling the Jets? That offense, that defense?
Well, I'm not I'm not sure I'm feeling the Jets, but when you say iron sharpening iron, it kind of leads to the question I have for Connor. And that is, this is going to sound strange, but their starting quarterback is 39 years old, I believe, and Rodgers. And we know what he is. We know about his Hall of Fame talent and all that. I think the Jets have the best quarterback room in the division, if not in the conference, because Zach Wilson, I know it's preseason, but Zach Wilson in a quarterback room with Aaron Rodgers, no pressure on him to get it done this year at the beginning of the season. Now, he may come in because, who knows, Rodgers with an injury, I know he missed some games last year and Jordan Love was in there, but he may be asked to step up. And I just like the combination and I like the relationship between Rodgers and Wilson. And Rodgers started that before he got to the Jets.
Yeah, I like how they're vibing.
I think if you could salvage Zach Wilson, this was the best possible situation for him, right? He has a long road ahead of him. He's already begun to take baby steps. We've seen him look a little bit more calm and composed behind the scenes when you get to see, obviously, Hard Knocks and a lot of access footage. And then also throughout the preseason so far, where baby steps, right? It's the preseason. You never want to overreact. But the relationship with Rodgers, this is the quarterback that he idolized growing up. You could see that he wants to play like him. Obviously, everything Rodgers says is going to hit a little different for Zach Wilson and how he can kind of emulate him on the field running Nathaniel Hackett's offense. So it's going to be really interesting if Zach Wilson has to get them through a tough patch at some point this year. I mean, the reality is quarterbacks in their late 30s, all quarterbacks, they get banged up. I mean, we see it with young quarterbacks all the time. We see Joe Burrow, is he going to be ready for week one? Jalen Hurts missed some time last year. Lamar Jackson missed some time. And Justin Herbert got, sawed in half at one point with the rib injury. It just happens to these guys. So I think this is a way bigger story than anyone's made it out to be. It's fun right now to talk about the Jets defense is awesome. They're loaded with young talent. Rodgers is here. The mood is really just immaculate right now. But Zach Wilson being the number 2, them passing on that veteran market in a year where they pushed all their chips to the table, this preseason and how he performs and how he reacts to everything is massive.
Well, but Michael, it's crazy how we're watching something from afar, not talking about it, but seeing the same thing, and that's that relationship between Rodgers and Wilson that we're talking about, because I want to extrapolate it to look across the league, and it's just like, okay, Wilson was the number 2 pick and looked like, everybody wanted the Jets to get rid of him. They said no. I think, what was it? Robert Saleh talked about instant coffee society last year. It's like, no, we're going to develop this kid. We're not giving up on him yet. Then you see Trey Lance, who has just had the worst luck of anybody. Maybe he can't play, but he certainly hasn't had a real opportunity to develop in this day and age that we live in. So I look at Trey Lance's struggles in San Francisco. I look at Zach Wilson, and I think about how development of quarterbacks, guys, as y'all know, is just not linear. Because then you look at the rookie quarterbacks that played this weekend. We didn't see a whole lot from them. Bryce Young didn't play a whole lot, took a bunch of hits. Anthony Richardson threw a pick. C.J. Stroud, your man, Michael Holley, he threw a pick. It's like, I don't know, patience is out the window with a lot of these guys. But I love what's happening with Zach Wilson because it's just an example of, like, you know what? Sometimes it's not straight and narrow. Ask Geno Smith, going back to the Jets. It's not straight and narrow for all these quarterbacks. They rarely, if ever, hit the ground running. Was spoiled by the Burrows and the Herberts and so on and so forth. Hell, Trevor Lawrence looked like he looked terrible under Urban Meyer a year ago. Right, Michael?
Lawrence,
or 2 years ago?
Yep, Trevor Lawrence. Perfect example. But yeah, I like it. I like what the teams are doing now. See, I think the difference, you mentioned Trevor Lawrence, and I want to get your take on this, Connor, real quick. Michael, you mentioned Trevor Lawrence. He had Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was not patient with him, but Doug Peterson was and is and got the results from Lawrence last year. I like what Frank Reich is saying about Bryce Young. I like what they're saying about C.J. Stroud. I like Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. They started from day one saying it's going to be a struggle, but we that's a part of the process. He needs to do it.
Right.
I guess the question is, who's more impatient? Is it the fans or is it the coaching staffs?
Fans?
In general, who's
Connor,
more impatient?
Connor, it's the fans and it's the owner that be listening to the fans that won't give the coaching staff the leeway to develop these quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, that's the big issue at hand, is that some of these quarterbacks, the organizations move heaven and earth to go get them, like Trey Lance, right? The amount they gave up to get him. And he's not the only one. This happens every single year. And then you obviously have a situation where the owner's hearing that and the fan base is clamoring for it and they want to put butts in the seats, and then that makes an accelerated process. So it is such a fine balance. You have GMs that don't want to risk getting fired before their guy ever takes a snap, or ever takes a snap where he's comfortable and competent. So the NFL has become, at quarterback specifically, a superhero world where you expect guys to save these franchises that are really, really swimming upstream. And, you know, you look at Jacksonville, you look at the Jets, you look at the Bears, you look at the Niners, you know, they've all been through it, and it's not going to go away, but there might be something to the draft and stash idea going forward.
Yeah. Hey, Connor, I'm usually the one getting asked this. I need a t-shirt plug, dog. I need to know what you got. But both of y'all brought it. I need a t-shirt plug. Michael, I'm peeping the Fela as well. I'm not your man. But that Blitz shirt, that's hard. I like that, Connor.
Shout out to Homage, man. They killed the Blitz series.
A belated happy 50th birthday to hip hop. I don't know a world without hip hop. I'm younger than hip hop. Hip hop is like oxygen to me. I am hip hop. I can't distinguish this country or this world's institutions or industries or individuals from hip hop. It's so much a part of our society, both in ways obvious and more subtle. But man, I like, you know, and it's at the center of our relationship. Like, you're one of the smartest dudes. I'm not bullshitting you. I'm not blowing smoke. Like, you wise about a lot of things, but like, I've always appreciated your opinion and your knowledge of music. And you and I have experienced hip hop together over the last 20 plus years. I'll ask you this before we go. This is a whole podcast in and of itself. I'll ask you this before we go. How would you describe your relationship with hip hop, and how has it evolved to where it is today? Yeah, answer that in a minute and a half.
Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, no chance. You're gonna have to have me on your podcast to continue this. But it's in a word, immersive, all-encompassing relationship with it. It's 50, but for me, I remember where I was in some of the great moments in the history of hip hop. Rapper's Delight, Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, KRS-One, you know, like some of the people really just kept growing it. Run DMC kept growing it. And so what hip hop has done for me, Mike, and you talk about our relationship, it's a big part of it. What hip hop has done for me is make me appreciate writing, make me appreciate poetry, lyrics even more, and make me more curious. It has made me more curious about storytelling, from the art of storytelling to some of the topics. Like Public Enemy was talking about Coltrane. Public Enemy was talking about Assata Shakur. Public Enemy was talking about the prison industrial complex.
Right.
So before these were all mainstream topics.
What we've learned, how we dress, how we speak, how we think, everything influenced by hip hop. Everything. It's touched every sector of our society. Love of my life.
The things that hip hop is promoting, and the things that we criticize it too.
Hip hop, you the love of my life.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.